Hello, music makers. Welcome back. Last year, I had the bright idea to remix John Carpenter's Halloween theme. It's quite the challenge because there's some weird key shifts in there and some odd timings too. The only problem was, by the time I'd figured it out and then made a video to show you the whole thing, it was the 5th of November. Now, this year, not only have I updated it, I've already sent it to stores, so it should be out well in time. And look at this, a video with 2 weeks to spare, showing you how I updated it. Let's go. So, I'm only going to discuss the changes in this video. If at any point it gets too confusing, I suggest checking out the first video. That has all the juicy details regarding the different keys and timings, etc. So, what's changed? Well, I showed this one to my manager, DJ Clips, because he has much better DJ instincts than I do, and he could hear some changes to the arrangement. So, the first thing he spotted was the intro. In the original, after the 32-bar mix-in, I drop into the riff, holding on the 1. He thought that was far too soon, suggesting instead we tease the riff in. Build some tension. This is Halloween after all. So instead, I've done this. Here I've kept the track in 4/4 instead of the original 5. So the riff never gets to complete. So at this point, most people probably won't realize what's coming in. It should sound like a normal techno ARP. And then next, we add a quick tease of note 6 to hint to the original, but only in 1 out of every 4 bars. Then we finally move to the full riff, and the whole track shifts to 5/4 time signature. Everyone should realize what's happening now, and I give them a little break section to absorb it. And the chord change. Big synth stab. Hint that something's coming. And then we throw them straight into the key change. Then we let this develop as it used to. Extra musical parts mimicking the original arrangement. Adding extra drum parts to build energy on the second rotation. And into a slightly different break. Previously here, I had brought it back to the original riff, just holding on the 1. Held it there and then let it be joined by the original piano. And then from here, it's John Carpenter's original arrangement. And that's all very well. It does build tension holding for that long, but the problem is we've had no break from that riff. This time instead, we get rid of the riff and let that original pulse synth build the tension. But back in 4/4, like this. And then we can introduce the original piano. That way we don't have the synth through the whole thing. We can also go back to 5/4 once the riff is in, because people have a reference now. When it's just down to the kick drum and the pulse synth, we changed that section to 4/4. I originally left that section in 5/4, but DJ Clips was confused when the melody came in. It turns out this is a core difference between musicians and DJs, or probably normal audiences. When there's no reference musically or rhythmically, most people are going to revert to counting in 4, whereas a musician would just continue to count in 5 if the track has been in 5 all this time. At least I was, anyway. So I changed that section to 4/4. Now, you might be wondering the same thing as me. Does all this time changing mess up programs like Rekordbox? I'm glad to report, no, it doesn't. Rekordbox automatically found all the correct cue points. From this point on is just John Carpenter's original arrangement. I show in the original video how I recreated the whole thing. Then we build out, but the second drop has changed. In my original attempt, I dropped on the 1. After that build-up though, it didn't feel like much of a payoff, so this time we're going straight into the chord changes. I think that works much better now. The original arrangement was quite hard to build out of, so I had to add this extra section which holds chord 1 anyway. 16 bars here, no change. So the drop deserved to change. Let it run through 1 key drop. Everything is in. And then out as we did before, moving back to 4/4, so it's easier to mix out of. So that's all the main arrangement changes. Let me show you the sound differences. So when it comes to the sound side of things, as I showed in the first video, my original references were from some older tracks. My favorites being Evolve from DVS1 and Submodular by Angelis and Search. As such, most of my sound selection was pretty old school, particularly in the drums. 90% of the drums were made up from just 808s and 909s, the built-in Ableton ones, without any processing. And while that's all very cool, I was a little concerned that this won't get any play from remotely modern or proper techno DJs, which I am not, unless I brought it in line with some of the newer stuff. So, after listening to some of the newer stuff out there, here's what I spotted. First of all, bottom end. The main difference I noticed in the newer tracks was the style of rumble. Now, initially, I wasn't going to count this difference because those tracks that have a lot of rumble are usually static in terms of harmony. They either just stick to the 1 or even none. Some of them are completely atonal. But this track has a lot of key shifts. The tonal center moves. And some of that darker harmony shift is what gives Halloween its vibes. So I didn't want to take away from that. In fact, even though I did include a bit of a rumble in the original, I still pitched it. Here it is. I chose that rumble because it had some pitch to it, so I could actually shift it along with my sub bass to move with the harmony. You'll probably need good headphones or a good system to hear this, but as you can see, on the MIDI here, I'm moving it. Let me play it back with the sub bass. The two combine in a nice way. Obviously, I had to take care that no bass frequencies were cancelled out when combining those two. Slight adjustments to the start points seem to do the trick. Now, that's great, but one of the ways I got away with it is because I kept the rumble at a very low level. Let me show you alongside our kick, the original 909. Notice no sidechain on the rumble. Normally I would, but I've done it instead with the attack of the sampler. It's fading in over the first 300 milliseconds, so it doesn't really peak until here. By the way, the rumble is just the back end of another kick drum. Let me show you the original sample while I'm here. No filter, no fade. Here's how our sub was sidechained. If you saw my bass processing video, this shape won't be a surprise. It's just the opposite of the kick. And as you can see, even without a limiter, when these are combined, we still aren't going into the red, which is a good indication that our bottom end is managed well. Even with the rumble, still no problems. But now we have another rumble to add. So the idea with this one, as you can see with the filter there, is this is going to be more prominent in the upper bass frequencies, the low mids, above 100-ish. this element was the main tonal difference I got from referencing the newer stuff. So even though my original rumble was filtered at around 400 Hz, my deciding to make it a pitched element and having to keep it low stopped me having it at a level where you would notice those upper frequencies. So this one is not pitched. It's just there to add noise, and it's sidechained like this. Notice that bump halfway through? That's also a rhythmic decision. I liked the way this pulsed on the offbeat, so it's adding to the groove, not just the low-end thickness. Altogether, we sound like this. As you can see, all these together, still not clipping. So no signs of any rogue peaks from any strange interferences. The reason I'm referencing that meter, by the way, is because our kick drum happens to be already hitting 0. So it's good news that even with all of this bass content added together, still not going over. So that's a great sign that our bottom end is well managed. Now, I didn't need to worry about losing chord change information, because the pads do most of that anyway. So even though the subs are still following the chord changes, our mid-range musical information means that the bottom end doesn't need to be as clear musically as I originally thought it should be. So to show you in context, here's where we were. And the new one. Now, I will say this wasn't easy. This is kind of like one of those don't try this at home pieces of advice. Combining multiple bass sounds usually ends in disaster. And you'll often hear me say, broadly, just don't go there. This just goes to show, with good ear training and a good monitoring environment, you can get this to work. Now, on to the drums. As I said, the original was mostly made up of 909s and 808s. Have a listen to the hi-hats in my first attempt. It's an 808 on 16ths, and a closed 909 on the offbeat. Referencing other stuff made it clear these needed a little bit of extra help. 808 hi-hats are still very useful. They're great for high frequencies. But they're also incredibly polite, if you will. But this is Halloween, so not exactly appropriate. I found this extra hi-hat loop, which I would describe as trashy. It's a little too sloppy on its own, but the 808s on top keep that transient precision. And that gives us this pace. I then found another one for the halfway pickup. That one covers more of the lower mid frequencies. Let's A-B again. Original. And if we compare, you'll realize how much pace was missing in the middle frequencies. Good stuff. What else did I change? Oh yes, stabs. So this was a nice happy accident. I stumbled upon this sound while I was looking for those techno rumbles. I teased just one hit in the first break, and then again in the second build, but I also dropped with it. Now, the original sample was a bigger line, typical of those Afterlife-style bass synths. Those kind of things. But I didn't want to go there with it. Rhythmically, that kind of thing isn't really in line with what's going on here. I think it would just sound forced. Instead, I just grabbed a single hit from it, which does remind me of some classics which used single acid stabs, or barks, as I called them. Roar. Hopefully you get the idea. So in the last drop, I ended up dropping with it and using it to emphasize the chord progression, which contributed to that final drop payoff. See if you agree. Let me show you the old one. And the new. I think that works much better. In the original, I think I was trying to keep it too cool, but then I realized this is Halloween. Yes, the theme is pretty dark, but this is hardly underground techno. And even if it wasn't a recognizable theme tune, by this point, it's far too musical with all these changes and timings to be considered underground. So I don't think there's anything wrong with going all in on the last drop here. Well, that's my thinking anyway. I should probably ask a proper techno expert.
Hey Ben, thanks for sending me this techno track. I'm going to do a live react to it right now and then tell you at the end what I think about it, just for fun. As sometimes I wish people would do this to my stuff, so I'm doing it for your stuff. Here we go. I'm hitting play now. A very beautiful low end. This makes me want to hear it on like a huge sound system. Yeah. It's really nicely designed kick. I'm turning it up. Yeah, nice. Ah, that's the 5/4 you're talking about. Yeah, that works for me. I'll play that. Yeah. The beat is really well constructed. It's a very attractive techno beat. Yeah, this is good. This is cool. This is cool. Whether I think it's legit techno or not, I think it's legit techno. So yeah, that's my opinion. Do with that what you will. I mean, thanks for sending it to me. I think it's super cool. But thanks for sending it, Ben. Happy Halloween and take care, man. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Can you believe it? Oscar reacted to my track. What a legend. Thank you, sir. It's an honor. Please go and show that man some love over at the Underdog Electronic Music School. Link in the description. He works incredibly hard and is a huge asset to the dance music community. Go and make sure you're subscribed. Right then, that about covers it. If you want all the nitty-gritty details of the sounds and chords, etc., a link to that original video is about to appear on your screen. If you found this video helpful, you know what to do. Press some buttons for me, or you can find a link in the description to buy me a coffee, should you be so inclined. Until next week, I will see you in the comments. Bye-bye.